My parents demanded I split the inheritance I got from my in-laws because my sister deserves a break after her messy divorce. I refused. I'm not paying for her bad choices. So now they're cutting me off and ignoring their grandkids, who adore them. Meanwhile, my sister ghosted them again for a new guy. And just like that, they suddenly want me and the kids back in their lives. You won't believe what my own parents demanded of me after my in-laws tragically passed away, leaving me a substantial inheritance. They looked me dead in the eye at the funeral and told me I had to split it in half, not for charity, but for my sister, so she could go on a vacation after her terrible divorce, a divorce, mind you, that was entirely her own making. So my in-laws, bless their souls, passed away tragically in a car accident. It was devastating. They were incredibly hardworking people. My father-in-law had his own business, my mother-in-law was a lawyer, and they saved every single penny. They left a huge inheritance to me, my husband, and our 2 young kids, who are 7 and 5. My husband and I already live comfortably, so our plan was simple. This money was for our children's education and future. But my parents? Oh, they had other plans. They found out about the inheritance at the funeral, and the moment the last guest left, they cornered me. They actually demanded I split the inheritance in half with my sister, Maya, who's 37. Their reasoning? Maya deserved a break after her terrible divorce, and since she didn't have a job, her sister, should pay for her vacation. Can you believe the audacity? To understand how absolutely infuriating this was, you need a little backstory. Maya was always the golden child. Straight A's, winning every competition, a million friends. Me? I was a straight-A student too, but I kept to myself, never really cared about the accolades. The one thing that truly stung was knowing my parents always preferred her. My mom had 3 miscarriages before Maya, and doctors told her she might never carry a child. So when Maya was born, she was their miracle baby, the one who finally made them parents. By the time I came along, they just didn't care as much. They already had their perfect daughter. I spent so much of my childhood trying to be like her, thinking maybe then they'd like me more. They never did. I'd ace a test, and they'd just say, "Oh, good job." Maya would get a participation certificate, and it would be framed, displayed prominently in the house. Eventually, I just got it. I was never going to be good enough for them. So, I accepted it and moved on, focusing on my own life. Maya, of course, excelled in school, valedictorian, Ivy League, the whole 9 yards. Then, she started a business with her boyfriend, using our parents' money. The second she made a dime, she moved in with him and completely cut off our parents. Just like that. Gone. They had no idea where she lived, worked, or even who this boyfriend was. My parents were shattered. They never, in a million years, thought their miracle child would abandon them. They were in denial for the longest time, then just pretended everything was fine. 2 years later, she waltzed back, and they were overjoyed. But it was short-lived. A few days later, she asked them for money for her business, promised to pay them back. They gave her more than she asked for. Everyone was happy. The next day, poof, gone again. For years, we'd hear bits and pieces about her, but she never called, never wrote, not even a postcard. Then, last year, after 15 years of absolute silence, she just showed up at their house unannounced. They were shocked, but of course, they let her in. She spun this whole tale, married the boyfriend, business was booming then tanked, they were both jobless, he started spending nights at bars, she cheated on him with one of his friends, nasty divorce, tons of drama. She was back because she had no money, no job, nowhere to go. And without a second thought, after 15 years of being ghosted, they let her move back in. Honestly, I wasn't even surprised. So, when they hit me with that demand at my in-laws' funeral, asking for half the inheritance for Maya's break, I literally laughed in their faces. I flat out refused. I told them, crystal clear, that this money was for my kids, for their future, and if they had a problem with that, too bad. My mother, oh, she screamed. She yelled that I owed them this because they raised me, and if I didn't give Maya the money, they'd cut me and my family off completely. And you know what? They did. For me, personally, I didn't care that they cut me off. But it broke my heart for my kids. They truly loved their grandparents, and there was absolutely nothing I could do about it. About 6 months later, my mom called. I figured it was about Maya, so I ignored it. The next day, my dad called. Now, that was confusing. He almost never calls unless it's an emergency. I picked up, and without missing a beat, he launched into it. Maya had a new boyfriend, took a bunch of money from them, left their house, and cut off all contact again. She'd been gone for 2 months. He said he and Mom wanted to meet me for lunch to apologize for cutting us off, begging me to let them back into our lives. I had absolutely zero interest. I just waited for him to finish, then told him flat out that it wouldn't be possible for them to be a part of our lives anymore. Then I hung up. See, This is Maya's pattern. She leaves, she comes back, she leaves again. And this is their pattern. They only love me and my family when Maya decides to ghost them. I'm always the support system, always the one picking up the pieces after their favorite daughter breaks their hearts and steals their money. I just can't do it anymore. I'm done. But it's conflicting, you know? A part of me feels like I'm abandoning them, and that feels terrible. I don't know if cutting them off is the best thing, but right now, it feels like the only thing I can do to protect my peace. It's been a month since my dad's call, and even though I was crystal clear about not wanting them back, they've been relentless. Desperate, even. I've ignored their calls and messages, so now they're calling my husband almost every day, trying to convince him they're genuinely sorry for cutting us off. He doesn't support them at all, but he's a softie, so he listens sometimes. I even told him I was having second thoughts about cutting them off, but he was firm. If you feel this strongly, don't change your mind. My parents claimed they missed me because I was the only daughter who truly cared and looked after them, and they were sorry about neglecting me as a child and wanted to make up for it. But I don't care anymore. I know they don't mean any of it. The second Maya shows up again, they'll forget about me and discard me, just like always. If they genuinely wanted to make amends, they should have tried when there was time. It's too late now. I want nothing to do with them. My kids have been a little upset about not seeing their grandparents, but I think they're starting to understand that something's really wrong. I wouldn't mind if, eventually, my kids want a relationship with them, but for now, I need no contact. I need this time to process everything and figure out what's next. Almost 4 months passed, and my parents never stopped trying. My husband eventually stopped picking up their calls, but they kept at it. Every time they'd call, my kids would ask, "Why don't we get to see Grandma and Grandpa anymore?" And I never knew what to say. Finally, I just broke. I picked up my mom's call the other day, and I heard her crying, really crying, over the phone. She choked out how much she missed me and the kids. Hearing her like that, I felt a pang of guilt. I agreed to meet them for lunch. The next day, I met them, and they were almost too sweet. I mean, they'd never been this sweet or friendly with me in my entire life. I was braced for screaming, crying, blaming, cursing, the whole 9 yards. But to my surprise, that's not what happened. My dad actually apologized for everything, said he felt terrible about neglecting me, and understood he should have been a better father. My mom was mostly quiet, which was completely out of character. All she said was she was sorry and should have prioritized me more. The rest of lunch was awkward, with them trying to be overly sweet and nice, but every single bit of it felt fake. I couldn't shake the feeling that they'd bolt the second Maya showed back up. So, my mind was made up. Before we left, they asked if I'd reconsider letting them back into my life. I told them no. They didn't say anything else, just left. I really hoped that was it, that I could finally live a life free of their drama. A month later, I realized how dumb I was to think my mother would understand what emergency meant. When I told them I didn't want them back, they heard, if we try hard enough, she'll let us back in. They started calling me and my husband constantly, from new numbers every time we blocked them. I was so sick of it. I finally picked up my mom's call and told her, point blank, that I wasn't interested in having them back in my life for now. I needed space, time to think, and I would contact them when I was ready. In the meantime, they were not to reach out unless it was a genuine emergency. I even warned her, if they didn't stop bothering my family like this, I'd file a restraining order. That finally made them stop calling all the time. My kids don't ask about them anymore either. I think they understood I got upset whenever they brought it up. To be honest, I did miss them. They're my parents, and I spent so much of my life around them. But I'm just so tired of being the discarded one. I think I deserve a family that truly loves me and isn't just using me for their own benefit. Maybe someday we'll talk again, but I can't do it yet. I need a lot of time away. And since many of you asked about my relationship with Maya, let me tell you. We were never close, but as a kid, I looked up to her. She was this huge deal, perfect in my eyes. I copied everything she did. I admired her so much. But she didn't like me. Not really. Every time I felt good about myself, she was there to tear me down. She'd remind me I was ugly, had acne, was unpopular, that I'd never measure up to her. And when I told my mom, she'd just laugh it off. Oh, she's just your sister. She doesn't mean it. She's just joking. Maybe she was joking. Maybe that's what siblings do. But what about the part where it hurt me? The person I looked up to, admired so much, always said such terrible things. But all of that was still fine. Until she made out with my first boyfriend. I was 14, she was 16. He came over, she was there, and I walked in from the kitchen to find them making out on the couch. I was furious at him, but that wasn't the worst part. My own sister shattered my heart into a million pieces. Why would she do that to her youngest sister? And it didn't stop there. If I liked a boy, she had to get with him. Every time I had a boyfriend, she'd make passes at them. So, that pure admiration and love I had for my sister? It turned into nothing but disappointment, anger, and hatred. By the time she did anything terrible after that, I wasn't surprised. 3 weeks later, I realized how dumb I was to think my mother would understand what emergency meant. Last night, as we were about to sit down for dinner, the doorbell rang. We weren't expecting anyone, so we were confused. My husband opened the door, called out to me, and there they were, my parents and Maya. My dad was holding a bottle of wine, my mom had some food, and Maya was just standing there, all of them looking ridiculously happy. My mom shrieked with excitement, "Maya's back." And there she was, standing right in front of me, that annoying grin on her face. They just invited themselves in, heading straight for the dining room. I froze at the front door, unable to process what was happening. After a few seconds, I followed them. My parents were hugging my kids, who looked totally uncomfortable. I stopped them, took the kids upstairs, told them to play for a bit, and that I'd bring them down for dinner soon. The kids went off, and I went back downstairs to the dining room where my parents and sister had made themselves right at home. I asked them what they thought they were doing, and they acted completely clueless, like nothing had happened. All they could say was, "Maya is back." It took every ounce of strength in me to keep my cool. In reality, I wanted to scream and rip their heads off. They were so ecstatic their beloved daughter was back, they completely ignored the fact that she'd stolen from them and abandoned them 3 times. She's literally a flight risk. If she saw a cute guy walking down the street, she wouldn't think twice about stealing from them and running off again. But my parents? They were blind when it came to Maya. She could do no wrong in their eyes. It was fine that she stole and ran away. It could be forgiven, forgotten. I just couldn't believe it. Were they really that blind? Could they really not see her pattern? Anyway, they went on and on about how their darling daughter, Maya, was in a very serious relationship with a married man who promised to marry her and give her everything. He made her pay the house rent, which she did with our parents' money, but he was never around, always too busy with his wife. So, she got bored and cheated on him with another man. Then the married guy broke up with her, so she moved in with the other guy, who had a stable job. But Maya didn't have a job, so she just sat around doing absolutely nothing. Eventually, she got bored of him too, and cheated on him with his younger brother. When that guy found out, he broke up with her and kicked her out. And after all of that, Maya came back to our parents, and they welcomed her with open arms. Of course they did. What else did anyone expect? Even after everything she'd done to them, she was still the definition of perfection. I knew for a fact Maya would leave again, and that it would crush them. But the only difference this time? I wouldn't be there to help them pick up the pieces. This incident made it crystal clear. This loop is never ending. There's no way out of it. The only thing I can do is keep myself and my family out of it. I didn't even try to be nice anymore. I just asked them what they were expecting from me. They looked confused, as if I was the one being unreasonable. I was so done. At that point, I just told them to get out of my house. I didn't care if it was humiliating for them. My family hadn't even had dinner because of their intrusion, and I just wanted them gone. I was so tired, I even promised to meet them at their house for lunch, just to get them to leave. They were satisfied with my proposal, said I should come over next week, and I agreed. And they finally left. I'll let you know what happens at lunch. Okay, so I went to my parents' house for lunch the day before yesterday. I needed a day to just process everything from the last time. I dragged myself there, walked in, and sat down in the living room. Maya was sitting right in front of me. It was so awkward, nobody was speaking. Then my mom came in, told us food was served. My dad tried to make small talk at the dining table, asking about my husband, the kids, my job. After some chit-chat, we were all just quietly eating for a few minutes. Then my mom started speaking. She went straight to the point. And the point was, of course, the inheritance. The entire reason they'd been bothering me and my family for almost a year now. They demanded I give half of it to my sister, their golden child. According to them, Maya deserved that money. She'd been through hell, and the only way she'd feel better was if she got half the inheritance. I reminded them again that the inheritance was for my kids, for their future, for their education, and whatever else they needed. I also said that Maya didn't deserve a single penny of it, and on top of that, she didn't even know my in-laws, let alone deserve their hard-earned money. My mom just shrugged and said it didn't matter, Maya didn't need to know them to get their money. I was already fuming, but I tried my absolute best to stay calm, to be civilized. I reminded them again that the money was for the kids, for their schools, colleges, everything. And after hearing this, my mother had the absolute audacity to say that I'd be wasting the money if I spent it on my kids, because they couldn't pour water out of a boot if the instructions were on the heel. That was it. I absolutely lost my mind. My kids, who genuinely love their grandparents, and this is what their grandparents had to say about them? I was already so done, but there might have been a tiny chance of reconciliation in the future. But her saying things like that about my kids? That crossed every single boundary I had. I completely lost it. I screamed at all of them. I called my parents out for being the worst possible parents to me. I told them how I felt about everything, about them always prioritizing Maya, about how she messed up constantly and was never punished, while I, even when I did nothing wrong, was always screamed at. Nothing I did was ever good enough for them, but their darling daughter, who abandoned them time and time again, was treated like a princess and given everything she ever wanted. At this point, I was bawling my eyes out. I stormed out of the house, drove back home, and blocked them from everywhere. They haven't tried to reach out in any way, and I am desperately hoping it stays that way. I am so incredibly tired of this, and if they try to reach out again, I honestly don't know what I'll do. A couple of weeks passed. I had some time to cool off and think, and as much as I hoped my parents would stay away, they didn't. They showed up at my house again last week. Just then this time, no Maya in sight. They weren't cheerful or excited, they looked sad. And I knew exactly what had happened. Maya left. So, the backup daughter was needed. Unfortunately for them, the backup daughter wasn't available this time. I didn't let them in. I stepped out onto the front porch, closing the door behind me, making sure they couldn't get anywhere near my kids. I asked them what they wanted, and my mom immediately started crying, telling me how their favorite daughter, who could do no wrong, had left again. I think she expected me to be surprised, and she definitely didn't like it when I just laughed. I mean, what did they expect? They thought Maya would stay? That's probably the funniest, most unrealistic thing I've ever heard. My mom couldn't tolerate my reaction and started screaming. She forgot she wasn't inside the house and just let loose, blaming me for Maya running away. I asked her what she meant, and she said if I just shared the inheritance and let Maya have her much-needed break, she'd still be living with them, and they'd be the happy family they always wanted to be. This just made me laugh even more. I asked her what she thought Maya would have done with that much money. Did she honestly think her favorite daughter would have used it to make their lives easier? Anyone who's even heard of her could guess she would have taken that money and never looked back. While my mother was screaming, crying, and blaming me for everything, my dad just stood there, looking sad, staring at the ground, not saying a single word. After my mom finally finished her rant, he spoke up. To my surprise, he said he was done waiting for Maya. He said he finally realized there was nothing I, or anyone, could have done to make her stay. Every time she found a new guy, she ran off with them, and he was done taking her in. He claimed the only reason he kept letting her come back was because my mother always begged him, always reminded him that Maya was their first child, the one who made them parents. But I didn't believe a word he said. Even if that was true, he always seemed overjoyed when Maya was back, and he never once tried to stop my mother from demanding I give up half the inheritance. I told him I didn't believe him, and he looked genuinely disappointed. After everything that's happened, how am I supposed to believe any of this? It doesn't make any sense. If he was so against it, he could have spoken up. He could have stood up for me. He could have been a good father to me. But he wasn't. Even after all of this, they asked to see the kids one last time before they left. There was no way. Not after what they'd said. I politely asked them to leave and told them I would be filing a restraining order. I had given it time. I had waited and hoped they would understand that I wouldn't have to take such serious measures. But unfortunately, they left me no choice. I've already filed the restraining order. Now, I finally feel like this huge weight has been lifted off of me. Sure, I feel a little sad about it, but I have had enough. This was the only way I could bring peace to myself and my family.